Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're zeroing in on a couple of really foundational pieces of Azure security, network security groups, NSGs, and application security groups, or ASGs. We want to get past just the definitions. We're looking at how they actually work strategically in building cloud setups that are, both strong and manageable, tackling that classic problem, tight security without drowning in admin work. Okay, so let's unpack this a bit. NSGs. They're basically your stateful packet filters in Azure. They look at traffic coming in and going out of your resources in a virtual network. And the key thing is they use rules based on source, destination, port, protocol to decide what gets through. Pretty standard firewall idea, right? But then ASGs come into play, and this is where it gets interesting. They let you logically group your VMs together. So instead of messing with IP addresses all the time, you can make rules that apply to, say, all your web servers. It's like applying security based on the application's role.
Right, exactly. And, understanding why they came about is, I think, really important. Before we had things like NSGs and ASGs trying to secure cloud networks it was messy. You were often stuck with configuring individual firewalls manually, which is super error prone, or juggling these complex IP lists. It just didn't scale and left gaps.
Yeah, I can imagine. Lots of potential holes.
Definitely. So NSGs really stepped up to give you a scalable, central way to lay down those network security rules across Azure. They basically solved that headache of controlling traffic flow with precise, granular rules. Like allowing web traffic to your servers, but blocking everything else you don't explicitly trust, all managed in one place.
Okay, so NSGs brought the control. Where do ASGs fit into that evolution?
Yeah, so ASGs build on that. They were really designed to make applying those NSG rules much, much simpler, especially when you've got dynamic environments like VMs spinning up and down, or just really large setups where IPs are changing. Instead of updating rules with new IPs constantly, you just say, apply this rule to the web servers group. It keeps policies consistent for whole application tiers. It cuts down massively on the admin effort and, frankly, makes your security posture stronger because it's targeting the application logic, not just static IPs.
That makes a lot of sense. So if you're an architect trying to use these effectively in like a real production setting, what are the absolute must-know features, the core things you have to get right?
Good question. For NSGs, the big one is understanding the rule priority. They're numbered 100 to 4096, processed in order. Lower numbers run first. And these rules specifically state allow or deny. You can apply them pretty flexibly too, either across a whole subnet or you can get really specific and apply them just to a single network interface on a VM. Super granular control if you need it.
And there are default rules too, right, to allow basic network comms.
Yep, exactly. There are default rules baked in that allow traffic within the VNet and from Azure load balancers, but deny pretty much everything else inbound from the internet, for instance. You override those with your own more specific rules.
Okay. And for ASGs?
For ASGs, the key is that application-centric policy idea we talked about, grouping VMs by role, and critically, how they integrate. They work smoothly with Azure Monitor, so you can actually log the traffic flows, hitting your rules essential for troubleshooting and auditing. Plus, they integrate with Azure Resource Manager, ARM. This is huge because it means your security rules become part of your infrastructure as code. You define them, version them, deploy them automatically. Consistency is key.
Right. Automating security configurations. So applying this, what are some common scenarios or maybe some common pitfalls people stumble into, especially when things get complex or scale up?
Well, a classic practical example is using an NSG to allow inbound web traffic, HTTP and HTTPS on ports 80 and 443, but only to the VMs tagged as web servers. Now, with ASGs, you just create an ASG called, say, front-end web servers. Then your NSG rule simply says, allow ports 80, 443 from internet to ASG front-end web servers. Much cleaner, especially if you have dozens of web servers.
Yeah, simplifies rule management a lot.
Absolutely. And for beginners, the best advice is always create specific least privileged rules, only allow exactly what's needed, deny everything else, and don't just set and forget. Regularly review your rules. Clean out the ones you don't need anymore. Security hygiene.
Makes sense. Are there limitations, though? Things they don't do?
Oh, for sure. There are definitely things to be aware of. Like NSGs have a limit on the number of rules. Currently, it's around 1,000 per group. Sounds like a lot. But in really large, complex enterprise networks, you can actually hit that limit. It forces you to think carefully about your network design, maybe use multiple NSGs strategically.
Okay, 1,000 rules isn't infinite.
Nope. And another key point, NSGs operate at layers 3 and 4 network and transport. They don't understand application layer stuff. They can't inspect HTTP headers or block SQL injection attacks, for example. For that level of security, you need other tools. Think Azure Firewall or a web application firewall, a WF.
Got it. So they're network traffic cops, not application inspectors.
Precisely. And with ASGs, while they're powerful, they do depend on you correctly tagging your VMs and integrating them into the groups. In very fast-moving, ephemeral environments, keeping those tags and group memberships accurate requires some discipline and automation.
So pulling it all together, the big takeaway here seems to be that mastering NSGs and ASGs gives you that essential mix of granular network control and simplified management,
Yeah.
which is just vital for protecting your stuff in Azure, meeting compliance needs. You mentioned GDPR, PCI DSS, and really building cloud solutions that are secure but also flexible enough to grow.
Exactly. It's foundational for secure, scalable cloud architecture on Azure.
Thinking about this idea of application-centric security that the ASGs enable, where you decouple the security policy from the underlying, maybe shifting infrastructure like IP addresses, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How could that core principle focusing security on the application or service rather than the network plumbing maybe inspire new ways to handle security policies in other complex systems, even ones completely outside the cloud? Something to think about.